Thank you so much for joining our webinar today. The words easy and expense reports don't normally go in the same sentence, but we've invited Neil Wainwright, who is CEO of Nexonia, to speak to us today about how to not only make the process easy, but also how to save time and money. Neil, without further ado, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, thanks very much, Brian. Hi, everybody. My name is Neil Wainwright. I'm going to be walking you through a little overview of Nexonia. So what you'll see here is our web interface. And you'll see it says BTO Group on it. So this is our web interface. Now, if you're a finance person, you're going to use it. And most of your employees won't because they'll use their mobile apps. So here's my iPhone. And you can see I can pull down and I can sync with our servers. I can click on help, and you'll see YouTube videos. And you'll also see contact information so people can call us or email us. And you'll also see that we have a suggestion box. So at Nexonia, we really want to hear from our customers. So I can type in hello world and send, and now you'll see that was sent to Nexonia. So let's go ahead and create an expense report. I click plus, call this one demo one, save, and now I have a blank expense report. If I want to, I can create a line item manually and take a picture. And here's this one. And say use photo. And there's the amount. It was $151.42. And now this one has customers. Here's categories. So I'll say that was a dinner. And I could also choose a project if I wanted to. So these can be shown or hidden. We have unlimited dimension capability. And it's all configurable in terms of what drop downs and choices and what things you have there. We can even have unlimited currencies that are turned on, so you're able to choose foreign currencies. If you choose a foreign currency, it'll put in the exchange rate that was in effect on the day you incurred the expense, and that'll go on your expense report as a foreign charge, but of course it'll convert it back to US dollars or your home currency. You also have a memo field that you can make very large. So I'm going to put Nexonia demo here. And then I can save the line item. So that's all I had to do for $151.42 in charges. Now, if I wanted to, I could have just taken a picture of a receipt. And I can even, there's a couple things here I wanted to show. If all I'm doing is taking a picture of the receipt, I can do two things. You can see up here, I can type in the amount of the receipt, but there's also a little paper airplane symbol here. And if I tap that, it'll send it out to our OCR service for scanning. So this gets posted to our servers and it comes back within about 5 or 10 minutes with the amount already filled in. Now, having said that, and a lot of expense vendors have this, it's not all that exciting because the way Nexonia's done our mobile apps, you actually can type in the amount because it's right in front of you. You don't have to send it off to someone to type it out because it's right there. But in any event, we added the ability to send receipts for being scanned and being automatically OCR'd and scanned. And the challenge for those of you that are not familiar with optical character recognition or auto scanning is when it comes to receipts, the accuracy is only about 70%. However, when you're typing in the amount and you're the person who's got the receipt in front of your nose, you're kind of 100% because you have it in front of you. So we do OCRing, but we don't need to. But it is there as an option if you want to use it. Now the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to choose a mileage. So let's go ahead and choose mileage. And I'm going to say I'm going from, let's go from where I'm sitting now, and I'm going to go to Dallas, Texas. And you can type in full addresses. You can do all kinds of things. Let me just go ahead and save that, generate the map. And from where I'm sitting now to Dallas, I have to drive for 1,417 miles. Um, and at the current IRS rate of 57.5 cents a mile, it's 814.78. So, and by the way, we also saved a little map. You can see it in the top right corner. And if I go look here, you're going to see there is that map all the way from A to B, and the distance of 1,417 miles. So that's kind of how you do receipts, and it's all automated. You can have multiple waypoints. You can change the mileage rate. Doesn't really matter. It's all fully supported. So what we're going to do now is click Submit and route it for approvals. Now, this is going to go to Brian, but I don't think Brian's going to approve my expense because he didn't know it was, well, actually, I guess he does know it's coming because he's watching this webinar too. But this is now going to go to Brian. And once it goes to Brian, he's going to get an email. And if he had an iPhone or an Android or a BlackBerry 10, it would pop up with a little notification for him telling him that he has expenses to approve. And if we look here, you're also going to see it says 966.20. Oops, sorry, is waiting for, this is my phone, by the way. So you can tell because someone just called me. Oh, here's the receipt. That smart scan was completed, and that only took a little bit of time. And let's see what they did. 4518, it put it in there, so we did it right. Okay, awesome. And it even put in the other data, like the memo put in the vendor 2-bar, and it put in April 24th, so it got everything correct. And by the way, this particular smart scanning that I turned on that receipt was actually done by 2 human beings. That we have a number of different OCR services that we can use, but I'm going to step back for a second and describe this one because it's kind of neat. We have one of them where it's a machine checks it and then a human checks it, and it's a commercial service. This other one that I just did, the one that I just did now that came back to us in the demo, it's actually an organization that's chartered with helping people in developing third world countries gain an income and build up these economies in developing countries. So that particular service that I turned on, and by the way, you don't have to turn on that service, but that particular service I turned on is actually sent that receipt that we uploaded in the demo to 2 different people, probably in Africa somewhere or somewhere in a third world country. They looked at it on their phones. 2 people typed in the same amount and then sent it back. And since they both matched, it was actually then sent back to us. Otherwise, it would have been escalated within the company that we work with to do that particular type of scanning. So it's actually an interesting way. It costs, we charge our customers 10 cents a scan, so we would now be paying 10% to help someone in a developing country with their economy. So that's one of the OCR services we have. We have another one which is stateside, which is a company called Shoeboxed, and we're actually adding a 3rd service lately soon, which is also stateside, but I can't mention their name yet because we haven't gone live with them. But anyways, that's an example of kind of how we do the OCR and how it came back, and that was a few minutes. So let's go ahead now and look at approvals, and I'll show you our web interface. So we're going to click approvals. I'm logged in as Brian. Brian can see that Neil Wainwright's got this expense for $966.20. Brian can open the expense report by clicking on it. He'll see there's 2 green paper clips. He'll see there's the amounts, the memos, and everything else. I can click on the green paper clip. You'll see the receipt. I can double click to zoom in, and you'll see the amount on the receipt very clearly. I could double click on the top, and actually, and I'll zoom in on the top. I can scroll around. I can click on the other paper clip. You're going to see here's the mileage map, and you can scroll down and see things, and you'll see all the way from where I'm sitting, Toronto to Dallas, and the driving. And this, by the way, this mileage is a true driving mileage. So if I said I wanted to make it a return trip, like a round trip, it would not be 1417 times 2 because there's on-ramps and off-ramps going in different directions. So the return trip might be a couple miles longer or shorter than the trip was the outbound path. So we also support the ability to go from A to B to C to D to E and back home again. So you can actually do a whole circle or a whole route up to 6 waypoints, we call it, in a mileage map automatically. So Brian's going to look at this. He might look at this one and say, you know what, Neil, that wasn't a dinner. That should have been an entertainment. And I know for a fact that you took, let's add someone, John Smith. Acme. So I'm going to make sure that that's an entertainment meal. And now that I see it all done, I'm going to approve it. I could approve and reject it a line item basis, and then it would go on to the next person in the approval chain. However, because this is a smaller company, popped up to say the expense was approved. So on the phone, it'll tell the employee as soon as their expense report was approved. And if they tap on it, they'll see it change to a green circle, which means it's now been approved. At this point, it's ready for the accounting system. Now, in terms of what we do with Intact and Sage 300, with Intact, it's fully automated. We synchronize the configuration setup from Intact automatically, and we send approved expenses back to Intact automatically. For Sage 300, we typically do, they have a little less capabilities in terms of what's called web services, so we actually work with the customer to configure it. And in your case, it would work with Brian's group and you to configure it, and then you click a button in Nexonia to create the import file. Now, what that means is, I'm going to call this one Sage 300. I'm just creating an integration while we're here. I'm going to make it a report integration instead of my fancy one. And I'm going to do this, this, and this. So if I was going to, oops, I always forget to enable it. If I was, you'll see now there's a new tab called Expense Reports, and it's called Sage 300. And if I click Transfer Now, it would give me a file to download, which would be exactly the file and the format that Sage 300 needs to import. It's that simple, and I could click it and it'll, download it, and I could then upload it into Sage 300. We've done Sage 300 flat file integrations for years. We've got some that have 127 columns. I think I counted one once when I did it a few years ago. So they can be very complex CSV files. It can be very streamlined. It really depends on what you need for your Sage 300 installation and what Brian and the Bitero group do to work with you to kind of tell us what you want the file format to look like. There's no programming involved. We can produce any file on the planet with absolutely no changes. It's just perfectly importable into Sage 300. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pause my screen for a second, and I'm going to log into an Intact integrated account, because as you know, Intact is a cloud accounting system. So what I can do, and I'm going to, actually I can do it now, I'm going to log into Intact. So I'm going to sign in, and I'm just going to get ready for it. So log in. So this is my Intact account that I use for doing demos. And now we're logged in, and you can see it here. Well, let's go back, and now in Nexonia, you don't see Bitero's logo. Brian has a much better logo than this. But what you'll see here is it has home, timesheets, time off allocation. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we have here. That's because this particular account is tied to Intact, and we have a whole bunch of other features turned on. But you'll see expenses. So I'm going to add an expense report under, let's see who we do them under typically. Yeah, Brian Callahan looks like he's getting some expenses. So let's find Brian Callahan here. Let's add an expense report. Let's call this one Bitero Demo 2. And we're going to create this expense report on the web. And there's a bunch of customers and projects, and here's a bunch of categories here. So I'm going to choose an entertainment expense. I can upload receipts, I can fax receipts, I can email in receipts, I can even use my webcam on my notebook computer, or if I have a webcam on my desktop computer, to actually hold my receipt up in front of the camera and take a picture of it. So we have all of these different things. But I'm going to just say right now I don't have a receipt, and I'm going to make it $123. And what you'll see here is there's classes and departments, Form 1099 looks like we had to turn that on. Locations, attendees here. I can choose people I've entertained before and add them. I'll just choose these guys. And we've added them, and I can keep going. So I'm going to create that one. I'm going to click Save and New. I'm going to choose my mileage, and we're going to go from Dallas, Texas to Houston. I'm going to click Generate Map, And you're going to see it's 239 miles. I'm going to click generate map again, and it's 478. So in this case, it actually was double. So normally you'd see a little bit of a change. And you'll see here's class and department. Now the class was defaulted based on the user class in Intact. Department, same thing. The employee records in Intact have all this stuff configured, and we just defaulted it, although you can change it if you wanted to. So I just click save and close. So now I have two things, and it looks like I got a policy violation. The amount, $123 or $61.50 per attendee, is above the limit of $50 per attendee. And it says a receipt needs to be provided as the amount $123 or $61.50 per attendee is higher than $0 per attendee allowed for entertainment. So now these are configured actually as, one of them is a can't be submitted. So it's a submission blocker. So I've done something wrong that's preventing me from submitting it. It's because I've overspent on my attendee limit. Now, because I'm an administrator, I think I'm able to submit this. Yes, I am. But a normal employee would have been prevented from doing that. We'll see here now it's marked blue. It's Henry Smith who's doing the approvals. So let's go ahead and just push it through approvals really quickly. There's Henry Smith, so let's just go ahead and approve it. And by the way, you typically would do a lot more perusal of the expenses before you fully approved it. But now you'll see this expense report is fully approved for $397.85. Well, if we didn't lift a finger, it would show up in Intact overnight, but let's lift a finger. Let's send it to Intact by transfer now. And again, you don't have to do this. It just goes automatically overnight. And let's send over the receipt because we don't want to wait. And let's go into Intact. Let's go to time and expense, staff expenses. Brian Callahan has an expense report marked as approved, $397.85. Everything looks nice. I open it up. I'm going to see there's entertainment and mileage. Everybody remembered it was entertainment because it was originally meals, and the approver changed it to entertainment. And there's the department location. If I click on this, you'll see show details, classes, items, you name it, billable flags, customers, projects, it's all there. And you'll even see here's an attachment, which I click on. And if I click run this plugin, because I always hide my PDF viewer by default, you'll see here's a PDF of the expense report, and there's that receipt, which is the mileage actually that we did. And that's all contained within Intact. So we can make it very automated, and you didn't have to export anything for Intact or import. We click transfer now, which we didn't have to click if we wanted to wait, if we didn't want to wait. And but when you click transfer now, it just sends it across with everything filled in, ready to be paid, all very clean and cool. So that's what I wanted to show you as far as our Intact integration is concerned. I'm now at the point where I think we're ready to ask if anybody has any questions. Brian, I've kind of finished things.
Well, and you finished great. What an exciting program and a great demonstration. And I just really appreciate you spending that time to walk through that awesome demo. And I'm a fan of integrated applications, so it's a lot of fun to see how closely you integrate with both Intact and Sage. So thank you very much for that. It does look like we have a question or two. Here's one. You talked about payment cards, small
Yes.
business cards, corporate cards. How do I know? This is the question. How do I know if my small business card works with Nexonia?
Very good question. The marketing answer is, of course, we support all of them. But that's not the answer we ever give a customer, by the way. The real answer is we need to try the integration. It takes only about 5 or 10 minutes on a web meeting like this. We really need to try the integration with your particular card. We do support 30,000 banks throughout this country. We have 2 or 3 different source providers of the data that we can work with and test to make sure it works. But the reality is those providers are very good, but they're not necessarily perfect. So we really have to try your card in our environment just to make sure that that provider can give us the data in an automated fashion. There's always the case where if you download a transaction file from your bank, we can actually support you importing into Nexonia. But really, who wants to do that if you can make it automated? So that's, the answer is we need to try it. Chances are it's going to be good, but we really need to try it and verify it.
Okay, good. Here's another question. You have time for another question, Neil?
Absolutely.
Okay. This question is asking, can users add in projects on Nexonia? Presumably, I guess we're talking about assigning an expense to a project and then having that, update project accounting in Intact.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the way we've done it to date, right to now, is that people don't add projects in Nexonia, they add projects in Intact, and then Nexonia picks them up in an automated synchronization. However, we're always listening to what our customers want us to do. So if we ended up with a customer on Intact that said, hey, I'd rather create the project in Nexonia and have the project push over to Intact, it's something that we could talk about. Certainly Intact's APIs allow it. But for those of you that use project accounting in Intact, you know there's a ton of settings in there. Not all of those are we going to duplicate in Nexonia, or not all those do you want us to duplicate in Nexonia. So it might be better to create it in Intact and then sync it over to Nexonia, without, or even it'll happen automatically overnight, than actually create it in Nexonia. Because if we create it in Nexonia, it has to somehow map up with something in Intact, or it's, when we try and send the data to Intact, it's not going to line up.
Okay, I hear you. Okay, one final question. A lot of our Intact customers have multi-entity databases, and so they're keeping track of lots of different companies. How does Nexonia work with multi-entity Intact companies?
That's a great question. We actually support multi-entity and fully support it. So when we turn on a customer that has multi-entity, like for example, Marketo is one of our customers, or Indeed, they're both multi-entity on Intact, and we fully support them. Literally, as quick as it is to synchronize our system with Intact with single entity, it's just as quick to support multi-entity, and we support all of the things you'd think you'd want to have at multi-entity, including some of our customers want us to send in the actual transactions at the parent level. Other customers want us to send it in at the entity level, or some customers want the credit card transactions to go in at the parent level, but the out-of-pocket expenses to go at the entity level. So we got all kinds of setups that customers want us to do, and we're quite willing and able to support them all.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, we're right to the end of our promised webinar time, actually over just a bit. I'm hesitating or pausing just a moment to see if any other questions are coming through, and I don't see that. So Neil, thank you so much for taking time today to demo your great product with us, and I hope that we'll be able to schedule another time where we can take a look at some of those other 5 programs that you guys have up and running that I'm sure are also very valuable. But in the meantime, we hope you've seen how easy expense reports can be with the help of Nexonia. Please feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address is there on your screen. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you soon.